Namaste and welcome to your ankle mobility yoga class. For today's practice, you will need to have a strap or anything similar, a blanket, and also a block. When you are ready, we will begin in a comfortable seated position. Sitting up nice and tall with your shoulders stacked on top of your hips, maybe softening the eyes or closing them down. And just start to notice your breath. Gentle inhales and exhales, the rise and fall to your chest. Just acknowledging how you feel today. Any thoughts moving through the mind. See if you can settle them down and allow yourself to become fully present for today's practice. We'll take a deep breath in together, sweeping the fingers up high, palms touch, maybe looking up overhead. And exhale, bring your hands down to heart center, pressing your thumbs in towards your sternum. Setting an intention to move mindfully and to honor your body. Begin to make your way onto your back body, making sure that you have your strap nearby. Settling into the mat, low back firmly pressing down to the ground, and your feet step down to the mat so the knees are lifted. Take a hold of your strap, bring your right knee in towards your chest, and wrap the strap around the heel and sort of the arch of your right foot. Find a comfortable grip with the strap and begin to pull the leg in towards your belly. A soft bend into the knees, really focusing on the hamstring here. If you don't feel too much, feel free to extend the left leg long or just keeping the left foot down to the mat. Maybe adding a little bit more pressure here, pulling the leg a bit closer, maybe gentle pulses. Bending deeply into the knee, pull the leg to the chest. We will switch the strap towards the middle of the arch of the foot. This will move the stretch more so into the calf muscle. Press the heel of the right foot to the sky and maybe gently pull the toes towards the face. You may start to feel this stretch coming into the ankle, but try to focus it onto the calf muscle. Invite some gentle movement here, starting to pull the inside of the foot towards your face and then the outer blade of the foot towards your face. Just rotating the foot from side to side to activate and stretch some of those tiny little muscles in and around the foot and the sides of the legs. Moving mindfully and gently. We'll now bring the strap towards the top of the foot, just underneath the toes so you can get a good grip. And this will really activate the ankle here. So feel free to bend the knee if you need to. Really press the heel up to the sky and focus the stretch towards the back of the ankle. You may feel a slight compression to the top of the foot. As long as it's just a mild discomfort and no actual pain. Switching the movement to a point and a flex of the foot so you could feel it into the top of the shin as well as into the back of the calf. Feel free to add on extra movements here, maybe pointing and flexing and then going from side to side or just rolling around the ankle in one direction, then switching. And we'll switch sides, bring the left foot in the strap alongside the right, remove the right foot, stepping the foot down to the mat. Making sure the strap is around sort of the base of the foot, around the heel. Start to bring that stretch into the hamstring, pulling the leg into the chest, soft through the toes. Maybe extending that right leg long to deepen the stretch. Bend deeply into the knee, switch the grip to the center of the foot so you can bring the focus to your calf muscle. You may feel the stretch deep into the ankle, so feel free to bend the knee if you need to here. Allow the sides of your feet to begin to pull to and away from your face, getting the muscles in and around the sides of the ankles and maybe into the calf as well. Shifting the strap's placement towards the top of the foot near the toes. Begin to find the stretch deep into the ankle. Press up through the heel and the toes to the face. Feel free to bend the knee. And be mindful that there's no pain in and around the ankle. And lastly, just taking whatever feels best here. Maybe gentle tugs onto the foot to stretch into the hamstring or circling the toes around, getting all those tiny and intricate little muscles and ligaments. Grounding down through the back body, place the right foot back inside the strap beside the left, creating a strong grip with the hands. We'll begin to slowly lower the feet down towards the mat, and as you do so, lift the chest, creating a little balance between the upper and lower bodies. Coming to a comfortable spot in the tailbone, see if you can open across the chest. And gently sliding the feet down, pulling shoulders stack on top of the hips in a seat. Allow yourself to get comfortable here with the straps still around the feet. Sitting up tall, begin to point and flex the toes to and away from your face. If you have a block here, this would be a great pose to use it just in between the ankles and the feet to create a natural distance between the legs and the hips. Begin to pull the toes towards the face, keep the heart lifted, and then guide your chest down towards your legs. Keep the thighs and the kneecaps pulled upward. Maybe we can walk your hands closer towards the feet as you begin to open up through the hamstrings even more. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Lifting yourself up, remove the strap and the block if you had it. And planting your hands by your sides, you can have your hands or your fingers out turned, or they can be pointing towards your toes, whichever is more comfortable. Step the feet down to the mat and begin to lift the hips, coming into a reverse tabletop pose. Really pressing up through the hip bones. Begin to shift the weight forward and back on the hands, but making sure that the core is engaged and the chest is lifted. Finding stillness, take a deep breath in through the nose. And exhale, drop the hips down towards the mat. Breathe in, lift. Breathe out, point the knees forward, sending hips closer towards your heels. Then inhale back forward. Exhale, hips to the mat. Inhale, press up, reverse tabletop. Exhale, shift weight forward. Breathe in, back through center. Exhale, hips lower. We'll flow through this a few more times. Inhale, press up. Exhale, forward. Inhale, come back through center. Exhale, hips lower. Inhale, lift up. Exhale. Breathe in. Breathe out. Beautiful. Now you can bring your hands, wrap them around your shins. Bring chin to chest. Take a deep inhale. And let it go. And coming into a comfortable seat, whatever that might look like for you. Just making sure that the right shin is in front of the left. Walk your fingers forward, leaning over the shins. Keep the fingertips pressed down and lift through the palms so that you can find a stretch down through the sides of the body and into the shoulders. Inhale to lift up and switch the legs so the left shin is out in front. Breathe in across the heart and use your exhale to fold forward. Use an inhale to lift back up. Bring the soles of the feet to touch for butterfly pose. If this is too much, you can always sit your hips up onto a block. Again, finding a forward fold, or you can stay lifted. Yogi's choice. Use your inhale to come back into a seat. And try here to lift the foot on top of the thigh and then bring your elbow and see if you can place it to the inside of the foot, the arch of the foot. If this isn't comfortable, know that you can always come into your butterfly pose once more and just massage the inside of the foot with your fingers. Otherwise, just gently rolling the elbow around, up and down the length of the foot, around the toes. So adding gentle little pressure points throughout the foot. And switching sides, uncrossing the legs if they were crossed or staying in your butterfly. Shifting the elbow in little circles or the thumb. Just releasing tension. This should feel really good. And gently coming out of this pose, cross over your ankles and make your way into a tabletop pose at the top of your mat. Stack your shoulders on top of your wrists and your hips on top of your knees. Tuck the toes and sink the hips back towards the heels for an active child's pose. Stretching into the arches of the feet. Stay here if this is enough of a stretch for you, or you can start to walk your hands towards your knees. Then take a deep breath in, lift the chest, lift the gaze, and open across the heart. Then breathe out, start to round through the spine and press up between the shoulder blades. Take a few more breaths here. Inhale to open and exhale to round and press through the hands. Gently slide the hands forward, sinking into your child's pose. Melt the forehead down to the mat. Take a deep breath in and start to lift yourself back into that active child's pose. If you would like to here, you can make this even deeper by bringing your hands to the tops of the thighs, stacking shoulders on top of your hips. Just making sure that there's no pain into the arches of the feet. And just sitting with this discomfort and stillness. If you need a break, you can bring the hands down to the mat and gently tap out the feet. Then try to come right back in and give yourself a few more slow breaths here. If you are ready to take this a little bit deeper, you can untuck the left foot and bring the focus onto the right only. Listening to your body, and if you need to come out, bringing your hands back down to the mat. If you chose to take the 1 foot variation, switching sides, tucking the left toes under and untucking the right. Bring the hands back down to the mat in whichever variation you are in. And just press the tops of the feet down into the ground. We'll counter that squat. You can keep your hands to the mat, or you can start to walk your hands to your thighs, or if you have that space, maybe bringing your hands behind your hips. If you still don't feel anything, you can pick the knees off the mat, adding that pressure onto the tops of the ankles. Feel free to lift one knee and then the other, just focusing the stretch onto 1 foot at a time. Coming into a different variation for this stretch, bring the big toes to touch and open the heels out towards the sides. Then sink your hips into that little bowl. Maybe if it feels good, you can lift the knees and lean back. One last little toe squat variation. Tuck the toes once more. Reach the fingers forward and then see if you can send the heels down to the mat. And come back up onto the tippy toes, send the knees to the mat. Lift the heart, lift the gaze. Then follow an exhale, lift the knees, and then sink the heels to the ground, round through the spine. Breathe in to find that open, drop the knees back down. Breathe out, heels and hips back. And take a couple shifts forward and back if that just feels good. And when you're ready, see if you can send your heels all the way to the mat to keep your hips floating. Maybe you aren't quite there yet, but as you practice, you might notice some differences. Bringing the focus to the arches of the feet. See if you can float the knees, but also lift the heels away from the ground. Keep lifting, 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 and then send them back down to the ground. Move through this little balancing flow here, lifting and lowering the heels, keeping the knees tucked into the chest as much as feels comfortable too. Beautiful job. We'll come out of these little toe squats here. Ground down through the hands and start to straighten through the legs, coming into a forward fold. Inhale to roll up all the way into Tadasana mountain pose. You can make your way towards the center of your mat. Bring your heels together and turn your toes out. Lift and lower the heels, keeping the heels close towards each other. After a few rounds, you'll start to feel the burn into the calves. And feel free to use a hand to either a chair or a wall. Just to ensure that you're really activating the muscles that find the lift rather than the muscles that are used during the balance. And just a few more here. Beautiful job. Bring your heels in line with the toes, reach the arms out in front of you, and start to sink into a powerful chair pose. Keep the heart and gaze lifted, lowering even more, bringing the weight into your heels and maybe float the toes. On your next inhale, begin to rise up. And as you do, start to lift the heels away from the mat, standing on your toes. Find an exhale, start to sink back into your chair pose, bending into the knees. But the lower you bring your hips to the mat, the more your heels lift away. Awkward pose, using strength and balance as well as that ankle mobility. See if you can lower the hips all the way to the heels. Embrace this balancing challenge. It's okay to fall out. And slower than you want to, rise back up all the way onto the toes and then settle back down onto the heels. Feel free to shake out the feet, rolling the ankles, pointing up, flexing the feet. And then walk your feet as wide as the mat with the heels turned in, toes turned out. We're going to move through a couple of yogi squats or malasanas. So bend the hips down in line with the knees, plant the hands down to the mat. Then bring your elbows to the insides of the knees, pressing them open. Sway from side to side, picking up one heel and then the other. Just testing out how it feels in the hips and in the ankles. Come back through center and lift through the hips, straightening the legs. Turn the toes in line with the heels, and then walk the heels in just another inch to find that 45-degree alignment once more. Find your yogi squat and just notice any differences in this variation versus the other. Lift the hips up and micro adjust once more so the heels are even closer towards each other. In this one, you might need to reach the fingers forward to balance yourself out. Lift up the hips, straighten through the legs, and start to walk the toes and heels back out. Coming back into your squats. Lift up, micro adjust out, and sink the hips back down. Holding here this time, feel free to sway from side to side, or just wiggle yourself into a position where you can get the heels as close to the ground as you can while comfortably opening up into the hips. Feel free to keep the hips lifted here if it's not comfortable in the inner thighs. Beautiful job. Plant the hands down, heel toe the feet all the way towards each other, and just find a forward fold here. Vertebrae by vertebrae, rise up, sweep the arms high. And exhale, hands come down to heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands through heart, forward fold. Inhale into your halfway lift. And exhale, fold, plant the hands. Step your left foot back and drop down the knee and untuck the toes. Make sure that the right ankle is just underneath the right knee for your grounded low lunge. Settle into your hips, and when you're ready, you can peel the belly off of the thigh, bringing your hands to the top of the knee. Gently release, frame the foot. Make your way into your half split. Feel free to tuck the back toes for balance. Draw the right toes to the face and straighten through the right leg. And we'll switch the stretch around here by pointing and flexing the right foot, pulling the toes to the face and then stepping it down to the mat. You'll feel the stretch move from the calf into the top of the leg. Plant the right foot back down to the mat. Shift the back knee forward just a little bit to shorten your stance. Now making sure the right heel is pulled behind the knee and the knee is shifting forward. Focus on grounding down through the entire right foot while getting the knee as far forward as you can. Breathe through any discomfort, avoiding any pain. Beautiful job. Shift back into your half split just to release from that stretch. Then tuck the back toes, bend into the knees, and step forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Plant the hands and step the right foot back this time, aligning the ankle under the knee. Settle into the hips on this side. When you're ready, you can lift the heart up, bringing the hands onto the top of the thigh. Deep breath in to open across the heart. Deep breath out to sink into the hips. Plant the hands, frame the foot. Tuck the right toes and straighten through the left leg. Draw the left toes towards the face for a moment. And you can find that little variation, pointing and flexing the left foot. Tune into the sensations and what you feel here. Stepping the left foot down flat to the mat. Shift the weight forward, bending into that left knee. Pick the back knee up and then shift it just a couple inches forward so you can bring the left knee in front of the left ankle, creating that connection with the entire left foot. See if you can make this stretch even deeper. Good. Counter that stretch, sending the hips back. Then bend both knees, step up to the top of your mat. Inhale, halfway lift, and then rise all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Turn to face the long side of your mat, stepping your feet out wide, heels turned in and toes turned out. Finding an active side lunge, bend into the right knee, maybe placing the right elbow onto the thigh. Reach the left fingers up. Rise up, 5-star. Exhale, left elbow to the left knee, bending into that leg. Switching sides back over to the right and then over to the left. Feel free to flow with your breath here. Inhales to rise and exhales to lunge. Bring your weight all the way over into the right side and hold. Try to sink the hips even lower, keeping the left leg straight while ensuring that the right ankle stays firmly rooted to the mat. And feel free to pick up that ankle, sinking the hips even lower. Pull the left toes towards the face. Option to stay here or plant the right hand down and reach the left fingers up high, maybe looking up. And close it back down. Plant the right hand out in front of you and then swing the left hand back behind. Lean back the hips so that you can get the right heel down to the ground. Then counter it to lean forward and then sending it back up. Finding a little bit of a flow with your balance here, using your hands as your support. Try to lift and lower that right heel. Beautiful job. Plant both hands down, lift up, rise up into your 5-star, open wide across the heart. Exhale, plant the hands down towards the left side of your mat, bend into the left knee. Sink and hold into your lunge as much as you can, making sure that the heel stays down to the ground as much as you can. Beautiful job. Now you can lift that heel off the ground, pull the right toes towards the face, and then come into that twist if you'd like, planting the left hand down and the right fingers reach high. Breathe in, open the heart, and breathe out to release. Finding that little sway here. The left fingers reach out in front of you, the right fingers reach back. Sink the hips back, reaching the left heel to the ground, and then shift the weight forward, leaning into the left hand. Moving through this flow, lifting and lowering that right heel off the ground in this really deep side lunge. Beautiful job. You need to lift yourself back through center, then rise up, finding 5-star. Bring your hands onto your hips, heel toe your feet towards each other. Inhale, sweep arms high, look up. Exhale, sink into your chair pose. Reach the fingers forward, then lower the hips all the way down. Wrap your arms around your shins and give yourself a hug. Release and come into a comfortable seat. Bring your hands to heart center and just give yourself a breath in and a breath out. Coming into a few slower stretches here. Send the right leg out long in front of you. Then step the left foot down to the ground. Internally rotate that knee towards the right knee and bring the left heel to the outside of the hip. Take a moment to just settle in and notice any sensations. If it is too much of a sharp stretch in the left knee, you can bring a block underneath the right hip, just elevating the hips so that the stretch in the left knee is not so intense and sharp. Listen to your body and make sure that the left toes are tucked in towards the left hip, but you're not actually sitting onto the heel. Feel free to lean back if you'd like to deepen the stretch and maybe even lower onto the forearms. Focus on your breathing and sitting in stillness. Half saddle pose. One more slow breath in and a slow breath out. If you're leaning back, you can start to lift yourself back up onto your hands. Turning the left toes to point out just to counter that intense stretch, maybe giving the ankle a squeeze. And then send the left leg long. We'll take it to the other side, bending the right knee and then turning the ankle out towards the right hip. Making sure that you have a good foundation and you'll be able to stay in this pose for a while. Again, those little things to make sure of is that you're not sitting onto the ankle, but the toe and foot is tucked in close to your hip. One more inhale and exhale. Slowly lift out of this pose. If you are leaning back, bring your hands to the mat. Turn the ankle out just to counter that stretch. When you're ready, extend the right leg long beside the left. Find a couple little windshield wipers with the toes here, rolling into the hip joints. And for our next pose, we're going to come into a supported malasana or yogi squat. So bring the blanket here, fold it up as much as you need to here. I like to have it quite high. Then step the heels and the arches of the feet onto the blanket, making sure the toes are touching the mat. Then sink into your squat, toes turned out or heels turned in. And then feel free to add a block here underneath the hips to support yourself even more. We're wanting to focus on the ankle mobility rather than the strengthening of the hips here. So if you'd like, over time, you can start to remove that block, and maybe you might even be able to remove or lessen the bulkiness of the blanket. There's so many ways that you can support your body here. So just listening and trying to notice what things you can do that will best support your body. Trying to sit with this in stillness for as long as you can. If you do need a break, you can always bring the hands to the mat, straighten the legs, and pedal out the feet a few times. Take one more deep breath in and a deep breath out. Plant the hands, lean forward, start to straighten through the legs. Turn the toes and heels in line with each other and relax into your forward fold. Beautiful job. Coming into a comfortable seat, either on the block or the blanket. And just closing down the eyes, noticing how you feel. Any sensations in the ankles. Sending love and gratitude to your ankles and the entire rest of your body. Feel free to pause the video and stay here for as long as you'd like. Otherwise, opening the eyes if they were closed. We'll take one last breath together here. Inhale, sweep the arms up high, palms touch overhead. Exhale, hands to heart. The light in me sees, acknowledges, and honors the light in you and knows that they are the same. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you have a wonderful rest of your day.